Hey folks, this is the Keys to Ascension review by Yes. We're going to talk primarily about two albums that Yes did in September 1996, Keys to Ascension, and then in November 1997, the following year, Keys to Ascension 2. So we're going to spend some time just looking into those albums, and I'll give you my review. Just let's go back. It's 1995, and the Talk Tour is over, and Yes has finished the tour. The album was a failure and didn't sell. I mean, Talk had its moments. I like Talk, but it didn't live up to the two previous albums from that version of Yes, 90125 or Big Generator. Yes didn't capitalize on the Union tour, and they didn't create any new momentum. So, what's the fallout from Talk? Trevor Rabin quits, so he can begin to make movie soundtracks, and he goes off and does that. And Tony Kaye leaves the band and does whatever Tony Kaye, the keyboardist, does. And so, voila, there's an opening for Steve, Howe, and Rick Wakeman to come back, and they do come back. But, really, how well can it work since Steve and Rick both live in England and John, Chris, and Alan live in the United States? So at that time, John Anderson had recently moved to San Luis Obispo, California, and this is where the group sets up shop. So Chris lives in LA and Alan lives in Seattle, and that makes it easier for them to get together, and Steve Howe is always willing to join them. Rick, for the most part, he works remotely and then joins them for the recording sessions, and works that way. I read that they secured a foreclosed bank in San Luis Obispo, and they use that as a recording studio. I should probably find and get the source for that, but meh, that's what I've read. These four discs are considered compilations, so you've got part of it as live, and these are live songs from the March of 1996 shows. They played 3 consecutive nights in SLO. I'm just going to abbreviate it as SLO going forward since it's hard for me to say. And these versions on the live albums, they're really faithful to the albums, really. I mean, that was their goal. And then there are new studio tracks on the second disc. And these tracks have rarely been played live, but they have on a few occasions. But they're, as far as Yes fans are concerned, like me, it's pretty rare to hear them on a live recording. I also have these 4 discs on my iPod, but also I've created 2 playlists, one for the live album, and that also matches what's on this. I have the DVD, and so the set list matches that. And by the way, I did look, the set lists from those 3 shows that they did in the theater, they match what's on the DVD, so they did a good job of staying consistent there. But I also have a playlist on my iPod that has Key Studio, and we can talk about that at the end. So I got the old iPod here. I made a playlist for the Keys Live, and that playlist matches what's on the DVD from end to end. And then I've got a second playlist, which is just the studio tracks, which Yes did a follow-up release called Key Studio that has the studio tracks, and that's an alternative release. Okay, now Keys 1, which is how I'll refer to it, says produced by Yes, and Keys 2 produced by Yes and Billy Sherwood, so that's where he gets in. Both albums, the studio tracks are mixed by Billy Sherwood. Keys 1 is on Essential, or CMC International, manufactured by BMG. And then Keys 2 is on Purple Pyramid, a division of Cleopatra. I'm not sure if that's on. Artwork by Roger Dean. Now, they went all out, and these are 2 of my favorite Roger Dean album covers. I just think they're so cool, and a long time ago I read about what he was going for here. He seemed to be like, I think there was like an accident or an explosion, and one is the before the accident shot, and the other is the after the accident shot. I always kind of think about it as like that's the football. And on this one, the football is over here, and there's another shot of it on the back. That's what the backs look like. And there's a larger on the inside it's got a larger version of what's on the cover, which I think is really cool. Like that. And by the way, the discs look cool too. So here's the larger version of the artwork. The discs, they printed out and put a special print on the discs. I think each one of these looks a little bit different. Here's the Keys 2 one. So I think that's the second disc. I usually put the second disc in first, and then here's the first disc. Yeah, and then the cover matches more of what's on Keys to Ascension 1, but it's not exactly the same thing. I still have the cardboard wrappers. Back in the day when you got a CD that was in a jewel case like this, it came in a cardboard, and that fits in there like that nice. Although I had these in a shoebox in my closet somewhere. I got a bunch of these. The Keys to 2 one, Keys 2 is a purple, so it's the same photo that's on the blue, that's on the jewel case, but it's in purple. And I always wonder why they did that, if they did it so you could tell them apart easier, but it is a cool effect. And then, of course, each one of these came with a poster, and the poster has essentially what's on the album cover, and then it's got photos of the bands that are in the booklets. So like you'll see, like here's a picture of Rick Wakeman, and that's also I got these. The posters are cool. I went and got them framed, and they've been hanging on the wall in my office forever. Next to, I also got a poster of Ummagumma from Pink Floyd that's framed, and I printed out a version of the Pulse, the DVD, and that's framed also. Now, the live materials that are on the discs, I've listened to a fair amount of times, and it's good. I've read recently that they did a bunch of studio overdubs. I'm not sure if that's true. I think that became sort of common practice, especially since Kiss really set the standard with Kiss Alive, that just overdub what you did on the live recording. The choice in setlist is just okay for the live. I suppose it makes sense based on the venue. They were playing in a small theater in SLO, and they were going for more classic, like 70s. But I could have probably came up with a better set list. Of course, they didn't ask me. Now, let's go through. I'm going to go through these one disc at a time. So on Keys to Ascension, disc 1, the first track is Siberian Katru. It's a good version of the song. Katru, if you don't know, it means as you wish in Arabic, Yemeni Arabic. This is maybe the best live version of the song. Although I like the Yes Songs version too, and the album version's good. There's a real good low end of the bass that you can hear in the mix, and the band's playing really tight. It's a good album opener for the band for a show. The second track is The Revealing Science of God. So right off the bat, we have a 10-minute song and then a 20-minute song. Although it gets Tales from Topographic Oceans off to a good start on that album. It may be the worst song on that album, but it's still a good song. Like I like The Revealing, as the fans call it. This version on here is just okay. They're trying to be true to the album. The part where John sings Starlight Movement, that part on the album has a ripping guitar line that follows up. But on this version, the live version, it's weak, and so that like they didn't have the guitar. It's almost like Steve is drowning in the mix in that part, where you expect it to be high impact, it's not. And then the part where John sings Skylight Teacher, that's the part where Rick on the album, he really shines. But on here, this live version, it's a weaker version, but it is true to the album. Of course, John Anderson's voice on all these songs, he sounds angelic, and he just sounds great. I wonder how much studio work he did to fix that. But lastly, I'll add the Moog solo starts out like the album. Rick has this famous Moog solo at the end, but he starts like that, but then it kind of goes off the rails quick. But generally a good version of The Revealing. The third track is America. It's another longer one at 10 minutes. This is a good version of the song. But why did they choose America? Is this a skip? Maybe. I mean, they have so many good choices of songs that they could choose, and they choose a Paul Simon cover, which they originally recorded back in the Fragile days. Um, but like I said, it's a good version. It's just why did they put it on here? There is a really cool Steve Howe solo in America, so I'll add that point. After America is Onward. This is a very nice version of the song, and I read once that Steve Howe chose that he wanted to play that. I don't know if I'm sure that's right. There's an extended introduction by Steve in Onward, and he begins by strumming like some slow long strums on the acoustic guitar, and then he transitions into the melody of the lyrics he's picking on the guitar, and then he goes into the arpeggiated riff that you hear on Onward, that so and then the song starts. But Onward is a beautiful piece of music from Yes off of Tormato, and it often gets forgotten by the band and by the fans. So I'm glad they chose Onward here. And then the last track on disc 1 is Awaken, which is again is another longer song at 18 and a half minutes. Of course, the album version is perfect from Going for the One, and it's better than here. But also, I would prefer the version that's on House of Yes that they did in 2000. I think that's a better version. This version of Awaken is not too impressive. Although I listened to it yesterday, it's better than I remembered. After the part where John sings "Here We Can Be," after the long piano introduction, after he sings "Here We Can Be," the album version on Going for the One has a real thunderous guitar part, but not here. It's Steve playing the same part, but it's not that roaring, like, over the top. Yeah. So it's just lacking. And then in Rick's keyboard choice, the sound choice that he does, during the harp section, there's that long extended in the middle of the song, right before John starts playing the harp. Rick's keyboard sound of choice is not, let's just say it's terrible. This is the biggest part of the song where John's about to ascend to heaven and playing the harp part, and it just comes off kind of flat. Okay, moving on to the second disc of Keys to Ascension. The encore of the concerts is on here. So the first track is Roundabout, and it's a great version of Roundabout, but it's Roundabout, so how many versions do you need? And then Starship Trooper is the next song, another long song at 13 minutes. This might be the best version of Starship Trooper, or my favorite. I also like the ABWH version quite a bit. What makes this one different is the extended solo is played by first Squire and then Howe and Wakeman during the Verm section. If you know, Starship Trooper has it's basically 3 parts in one song. Well, they really extend that out, and it has a really excellent guitar solo and keyboard solo. Now, track 3 is the first studio track from '96, and it's "Be the One," and it's a great song. Now, I didn't like it the first few years, but it's grown on me over the years. I'll say that. And it sounds to me like it's a Chris Squire song, which is huge because if you can think back to the '80s and the 90125 years, Chris he hasn't really become a primary songwriter. He's writing some songs, but it's mainly driven by Trevor Rabin and John to a certain extent. He does more on 90125 and less on the other. I'm getting down in the weeds, but John, it sounds like a Chris song, and John is singing, he's singing his love mantra, his love lyrics, and it's great. Now, it's split into 3 parts. The one is credited to Anderson and Squire. I would imagine John wrote the lyrics. Okay. And then Humankind is Anderson Squire, and then Skates is the Howe part But Skates to me sounds like the one, but I don't know. Maybe Steve did something special there. I don't know why he got credit. Uh, but with the one, he's in happy, and the song starts out da da dun da da dun da 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 da, and that's kind of the driving theme through the song. And then in the second part, Humankind, it gets really dark. It gets dark in the middle. That da 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 da. You know that part. The lyrics get really dark. But so the most part, he's singing like a message of self-empowerment and personal fulfillment, and then it gets dark in the middle, and then it goes back to being happy. So really cool song, and should be an album opener really somewhere. The fourth and final track on Keys to Ascension Disc 2 is That Is. Now this is on my short list of all-time favorite songs. Not just favorite Yes songs, but all-time favorite songs. That Is it's cool. At the time, it sounded like modern prog rock coming from Yes. Not trying to duplicate what they did from the 70s, but something new and fresh from them. That is 19 and a half minutes long, and it's broken up into 7 parts, I guess you'd call it. The introduction is called Togetherness. It's basically Steve Howe playing that opening line on acoustic guitar, that do 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 do, and you hear some bass and keyboards, and then Crossfire is the beginning of the main verse, and that's when John's singing about Julie sick and tired of her job, and Shirley comes over to help her, but she's strung out on crack time. So these characters, even though they have old school names, they've got real modern day problems. The giving things, this is the next part. It's more of the verse where John's singing, that talk is just a worry and a man, and he's really singing about the problems of modern day life. And that is the next part of the verse where, that life is just a worrying and getting in a mess, and that deal is just awakening a spirit to be giving him the pleasure of the giving things within. It's just really cool lyrics, and the way he sings it is, he sings it in a real forceful. For John, that's he's usually a real bright and happy guy, and in this he's really he's bringing it pretty hard. All in All is the next part. That's where he's singing over Rick Wakeman's keyboards. All in all, the wisdom call, you shall be young, you shall be free. And he's singing about how, more about that message of self-empowerment, how you can, really about how you can get over your problems. So it goes from real dark lyrics into something more problem solving, more empowering for the listener. And then How Did Heaven Begin and Agree to Agree. This is the way the song ends, and it sort of ends the way it begins, with that really fast beginning that you hear in the Crossfire section. So overall, yeah, it's 19 minutes and a great album closer. Now we move over to Keys to Ascension 2 with the purple cardboard and the different album artwork. There isn't too much to report here with Disc 1. It's more... It's the rest of the live songs that are not on Keys to Ascension 1, Disc 1 or 2. I've seen All Good People. It sounds like all the other versions that you've heard, maybe even a little bit less peppy, but it sounds good. Same for Going for the One, just a little bit less pep in Going for the One. Some of these songs are shorter because there's 2 big ones in here. So there's a nice alternative version of Time in a Word. I like when Yes plays with that one, because I think Time in a Word is off their second album called Time in a Word, and they've like changed it up, and it sounds good. Track 4 is Close to the Edge. Now, this is either my number 1 or number 2 favorite version of Close to the Edge. So it goes back and forth between this and ABWH. version. I like the Wakeman solo in here. He chose a real light keyboard sound, and it sounds cool, and he plays it really clean. And he does it, he does a good version that's consistent with what's on the album Close to the Edge. And the Steve soloing stuff sounds good. The I Get Up, I Get Down part sounds good. It's all good. And I like the additional noodling at the end of the song when the song ends. So, really cool version of Close to the Edge, the best song ever built. After Close to the Edge is Turn of the Century. This one's just under 8 minutes. It's a good choice for a Yes song because they don't play it a lot, and this is a really good version of it. It's solid. It comes off good. And then lastly, And You and I. Nothing too much different to report here, other than Chris is playing the harmonica when John is singing the preacher, the teacher part at the end. So I'm not sure when Chris started playing the harmonica, but you can hear it here. I would like to hear earlier versions of the song to see if it's on there. All right, we move over to disc 2 from Keys to Ascension 2. These are all new studio tracks, so this is essentially an album of its own, and it has a length of an album. The first track is Mind Drive. This is another epic from Yes at over 18.5 minutes. It uses material left over from XYZ, which is Chris and Chris and Alan were working with Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin for a period of time. So it uses that riff, and it's also that same drum line that you hear on the Union, where Bill Bruford and Alan White are. Da 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 da. They're just doing that, and that becomes like sort of the main theme of the song. But also, John is singing. He's singing about being independently whole. Okay. So he's got a real another message of self-empowerment going on here. One thing they did go a little bit cheaper on this booklet. They got good pictures, but they don't have the lyrics. They didn't print the lyrics this time. What's the second track? Footprints. Footprints only. Footprints is cool. It's the one that's it sounds like a Chris Squire song, and it's credited to Squire and John Anderson. Only time will tell. Leave good footprints behind. It seems like John Anderson calling us to do. If you do good deeds during your life, this will spark the revolution that he's singing about, and so it's sort of got a good, uplifting message of just do good deeds, do good work. Only time will tell. Leave good footprints behind. Bring Me to the Power is the third track. This is the one where he's singing, if they don't give us the keys, how are we supposed to survive? And John seems to be writing about God, or he's singing about God or divine or divinity. And on a lot of these songs, I would just listen to when I was driving around in the car. So when you're driving, you're not really thinking about too much about what you're singing about or what you're hearing. You're just really enjoying it. And yesterday I was looking at the lyrics on Genius, and I kind of get like a running theme. John must have been in a good mood back then. Children of Light is the fourth song. It's more of that message of the divine and divinity, and the second half is like a soundscape between Rick and Steve on, like, Rick's playing this real atmospheric stuff, and then Steve is playing steel guitar over the top of it, and it just sounds like you're traveling, okay? And when you hear that, when you're driving around and you hear that, it's like really fitting, but it also like lowers the mood of the album, and it's really calming and serene almost. And then the final track on Keys to Ascension Disc 2 is the fifth one, Sign Language. This is a very rare instrumental. It's mainly Steve and Rick. I don't hear any percussion in it. There might be some bass. I could never. Sometimes it's hard to tell if you're hearing a bass or you're hearing a synth, because they can make a synth sound just like that. But it's just it's going bum 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 do 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 bum 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 bum, and Rick and Steve seem to be trading leads back and forth, and that's sort of what's happening in that song. The bottom line for the Keys to Ascension and Keys to Ascension 2, this is excellent musicianship and music, and if you're a Yes fan, you're gonna like it. It's good, even great songwriting, I would call it. Strong collaboration between the four of them, and Rick. Rick's got some writing credits on the second Keys, so they're just like really working well to get together. Rick seems really plugged in and has good playing, and the issue is in my opinion now, this is my opinion, I think they botched these releases. What they could have done better is this should have been 2 or 3 releases of new music, new studio. They should have just focused on that. And they could have figured out how to wrap all these songs together and wrote some new material, and that could have been 3 albums right there. And then they should have released all the live tracks as a double disc live album. That would have been ideal. So they could have done like 2 or 3 albums, and then at the end release the live stuff. What happened is Wakeman, he got upset. He didn't like the decisions they were making on how to release this stuff, especially Keys 2. So he went and booked his own solo tour, and he quit. And I've read some of his interviews. He felt like they botched it too. He wanted to call Keys to Ascension 2 No. But that probably would have been better. So what happened? Rick's quits. They didn't know what to do. They had a tour coming. They didn't have Rick, so they rushed out Open Your Eyes, and it's frankly a bunch of filler material. I think I'll do an Open Your Eyes review. I'll do that one next week. But it's material that's not ready for prime time, and I think they probably were under pressure from management and the record company to do it. All in all, these two, all in all, the Wisdom Calls, all in all, good material, even great, but they squandered an opportunity to really capitalize on more momentum. They partially recovered with the Ladder and Magnification years later, but it's not the same. They should have kept going like this. Keys to Ascensions are essential for Yes fans. It's a moment of enthusiasm, enthusiastic music, a lot of promise, a lot of potential. That's what it means to me. It just seems like after that they dropped it all. But still, these are excellent albums to listen to, and if you're getting into Yes, I recommend them. As I mentioned, I've got some playlists in my iPod. I've got the I call it the Yes Keys live playlist, which is the order of the songs that are on the DVD copy. I won't even do a review of this. The DVD, if you're interested, it's not worth getting. I would recommend getting the 2 Keys to Ascensions and then making the playlist or listening to it like that. What you'll find yourself doing is you'll be reaching for disc 2s for both of them more often than not. They did release Keys Studio right around 2000, somewhere between 2002 and 2005, somewhere in there. I never picked it up, but I did make a playlist to match that. The order of the songs doesn't quite sound right for me. It's best, my recommended way of listening is just to put in disc 2s for both of them and listen to them from end to end. I usually skip over the Roundabout and the Starship Trooper. But these are, like I said, these are definitely worth your time and investment.